I am so, pardon my language, fucking fed up with the CBC, with the CTV, with global TV, with the newspapers, with the
I have never seen anything like this before, and I've been covering politics for the last 13 years. People are done. They are really done. And I think a leader is losing it when they start snapping at reporters for asking basic questions. There's a couple things about Mark Carney's latest visit abroad that a lot of people didn't really pick up on, and I cannot wait to show you. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, like, follow, and comment your thoughts down below. Share this video as well. And there's been some new data coming out about electric vehicles, and I don't think I've ever laughed harder. You are gonna love this one. The internet collectively lost their mind over the weekend. I may have played a very short role in that insanity that unfolded, which I didn't expect at all, by the way, but we will give some more explanation into it.
Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I spoke to him. I'll speak to him again when it matters. I mean, the sort of, comme j'ai dit, nous sommes très occupés. Nous sommes très, très occupés.
I've noticed this about Mark Carney over the last number of months, which is whenever he is asked about something that he doesn't like, he will start speaking in English and then he will go quickly to French. And a piece of me wonders if that's either A, him trying to be like, hey guys, I know how to speak French, or B, him trying to move away from the topic, because then after he finishes in French, he can then say, oh, sorry for going in French, everybody. No. Like it's an attempt of a dodge.
On attend, I'm always happy to. Sorry, I slipped into French because I anticipated the en français thing. I look forward to speaking to the president soon, but I don't have a burning issue to speak with the president about right now. When America wants to come back and have the discussions on the trade side, we will have those discussions.
Very important to note, by the way, that it took CBC close to 24 hours before they even reported on him saying, who cares? Being super dismissive. And this moment, I think, is being disguised as, oh, it's just super nonchalant. But what happened here is actually a lot worse than how the headlines make it look. I mean, he was asked the most obvious question in the world, given his entire election campaign.
Elbows up. Everything up.
I'm on the edge of my seat, actually. But thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. You're a transformational president.
He respects strength. He respects strength. And the question is, do you appease these guys?
Never.
Like Chamberlain? Never. Exactly. You stand up.
Ready for you.
The Orange Man started going on, working hand in hand with the United States, Canada and the United States.
They're going to put tariffs on us. We're going to put tariffs on them. We'll match dollar to dollar. We will target those tariffs where it hurts the most in the United States.
He skipped Canada. We got the best of a series of bad deals. But you can handle them. We can handle them. We are going to handle them. We are going to handle them.
By removing all of Canada's tariffs on U.S. goods. And I have played some hockey over the years. And there is a time in a game.
President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us.
Did you apologize to Donald Trump about Ontario's anti-tariff act?
I did apologize to the...
It's ridiculous, insulting comments of the president of what we could be. I view this as the sort of Voldemort of comment.
He says, who cares? It's a detail. Who cares, all you idiots who totally bought into my fear campaign and elected me? I don't care. Are you kidding me? I got way bigger things to be doing here. I don't have any burning issues to talk to the president about. Tariffs were never really that big of a deal anyway. We just needed you to believe that they were. We needed you to not look into why we were omitting the fact that the vast majority of our trade is tariff-free thanks to the USMCA. We didn't want you to know that detail because we know that there's a lot of low information voters. people who aren't going to care enough to look into me because I have the CBC behind me, right? So who cares? And this is such an epic response from the Bloc leader Blanchette, who writes, "Who cares?" by Donald Trump. That's not how Prime Minister Carney is going to restore the necessary relationship with the United States. We didn't choose their president, even if he didn't hesitate to interfere in the federal campaign, which contributed to the fear and the election of the Liberals. But now we have to live with the reality, not be naive by cozying up to the least reputable countries like China and the UAE, restore a valid diplomacy with the USA and resume the discussion on tariffs and trade. We won't replace the 75% to 80% of our exports that go to the United States in a few months, not even in a few years. This disdain from the Prime Minister could prove to be very costly and clumsy. Error in judgment. Not only are his comments just a total slap in the face to everybody who he riled up and who are still very riled up about it, who now have changed their story to say this is strength. Can you just be consistent, please? Either you're scared of Trump or you're not. Like, just pick one already. This is getting exhausting, all of the flip-flopping and the back and forth. Also important to note in terms of strength. Yeah, strength for who exactly are all of these deals happening with? Because it was actually reported by the Toronto Star that Brookfield has launched a $100 billion AI infrastructure program, which will be deployed across the full AI value chain. And iPolitics writes, Prime Minister Mark Carney is on his way to Abu Dhabi seeking more ties in fields like artificial intelligence with the United Arab Emirates, just as the country stands accused of fueling a genocide in Sudan. So weird, you don't see any protests about that genocide, do ya? But let's also not forget the fact that tariffs do legitimately affect our Canadian steel, aluminum, and auto sectors, as well as our lumber sector, which President Joe Biden increased tariffs on, and nobody seemed to care at all. So weird, that selective outrage, isn't it? But for him to try to sound strong and say, we'll talk to the Americans when they want to talk, that's like the equivalent of him saying, I'm not being ghosted. I just don't want to text him. Canada has no leverage here. We don't. We actually don't. And that's a really stark reality. It's an honest one. And you know what? Canada hasn't had a ton of leverage with the US for a very long time either, due to our own policies. But nonetheless, we didn't at that point in time do everything in our power to dismiss, criticize, insult, and smear the US administration. And the fact that we had no leverage wasn't actually a big deal. Just like most other countries who have a major trading export partner, Canada has one too. It is quite high in comparison to other nations, but that's our own doing, right? And we had a good relationship-ish up until about 4 years ago when Justin Trudeau started running his mouth to get political points.
Because the one thing that is effectively true, and it's been revealed, is that countries want to deal with Canada. They want deeper relationships with Canada. There is an enormous opportunity. Part of that, at its core, I think we have to recognize, is the value of Canada, many values of Canada. It's also a recognition of how much the world has changed and the need for these new web of relationships.
And like, what classic narcissistic behavior this is, where you know that you have screwed yourself. You've screwed yourself with your voter base, and you've screwed yourself with what you can offer, because we have what the world wants, as he often says. We just don't want to give them that. We want to give them what they're not asking for. Instead, we want to force them to take what they're not asking for, which is actually Mark Carney's almost entire professional career, or at least the professional career of which he was most passionate about, was exactly that. It wasn't giving people what they want. It was convincing them that they needed something that only you can offer them. And then you become incredibly rich. And then GFANS falls apart and there's lawsuits and stuff because everybody realizes it's kind of a sham. It's a whole thing.
We need to ultimately get to a point where every financial decision is taking climate change into account, the impact on the transition, and we actually drop the adjectives sustainable, because it's just what finance professionals do.
Almost everything is ridiculously expensive these days, but I have noticed that coffee stands out to me the most in terms of price increases. Buying your coffee from smaller roasters just makes sense, which is why you should try your Daily Fix coffee. This Canadian company was started by Brendan, a veteran American bomb disposal technician, and Crystal, who spent her career serving children, people with disabilities, and the elderly. They took lives built on service and poured that same purpose into a coffee company grounded in community, ethics, and compassion. The part I love most is that a portion of every purchase goes towards supporting charities and community initiatives. So your cup doesn't just taste good, it also does good. You can check out their Buddy Check brew, where every purchase supports programs for our veterans, members of the military, and first responders. It's coffee with a mission, reminding us to check in on each other and making sure that nobody faces their battles alone. Go to yourdailyfixcoffee.com/Jasmine and order today. Stock up, try a few blends for yourself or to gift. Use the code Jasmine to save 10% off your order.
It's really about looking for and at transition plans from all companies and backing those who are part of the solution and taking capital away from those who are part of the problem.
And pay attention to that right there, because it makes a hell of a lot of sense why Mark Carney is so rude and dismissive to reporters. Watch his facial expressions in this one.
CSIS says the threat from India remains and that Canada should remain vigilant because of that. Are you moving too fast on rekindling relations with India? What will you be saying to Modi this afternoon? And when do you plan to go to India?
Okay. With respect to any forms of foreign interference, we have to remain vigilant. We are vigilant. I got my security clearance well in advance.
Ugh, this is so beneath me. How dare you even ask me that completely rational question that CSIS and RCMP many times have insinuated is a really big problem. But how dare you ask me that question? Like, dude.
In the past few weeks, is Mark Carney and Anita Anand, the foreign minister, saying, we will be a strategic partner with China. That's a death wish. That's an absolute death wish. Days after they made that statement, I noticed that Japan's new prime minister, a woman, made the very reasonable comment that if China's army invades Taiwan, Japan may need to take some actions to protect itself and see that as a military threat to its existence, which if anyone that knows Japan and Taiwan would see that that's just common sense. And Japan seeing Beijing become more aggressive and threatening and expansive in that area is sort of rejigging their former only defensive military thinking posture and thinking, we need to be ready. What happened? A Chinese diplomat in the city of Osaka said that she should have her head cut off. How dare she? I want people to understand that the world is becoming more geopolitically dangerous. Russia and Ukraine isn't going away. A war in Asia could be coming. The United States is preparing for that. And meanwhile, Mark Carney's going closer to China. Trump's a hard bargainer, but I say they are our friend. Whatever rhetoric's going on in Washington and Ottawa, the people of Canada and the United States, the trade between us will always be a foundation of North America. It's foolishness to think otherwise.
I also think it's incredibly important to nitpick these pledges of deals. Like Mark Carney left Abu Dhabi saying that he had this $1 billion critical minerals deal, as well as a $70 billion investment from the UAE into Canada. That's not actually what it is, though, because it's short-term jobs into Canada to build that infrastructure with long-term foreign control. The UAE will be getting equity ownership in mines, ports, LNG, data, and data infrastructure, and Canada gets the ceremonial ribbon cutting. The revenue from those projects is going into foreign hands predominantly, not Canada, or not even in long-term Canadian careers. That's not how that's going to work at all. And the hypocrisy here is so absurd. I don't even have words for it. It makes absolutely no sense, because instead of fixing the system, like Canada could have so much private investment into our country from Canadian companies, American companies abroad, and like long-term investment that isn't foreign owned. We could have so much of that here on our soil, generating revenue for decades to come. But instead of fixing the bad policies that have made Canada uninvestable, Instead, Mark Carney is inviting foreign states to buy up what people in Canada won't touch and can't touch because of the current regulatory environment. And the hypocrisy here is just sickening, because he lectures Canadians about sovereignty, climate, Canadian leadership, Canada strong, build Canada. Meanwhile, he's signing deals that make our ports go foreign, our mines go foreign, LNG and pipelines, foreign stakes, data centers, foreign, critical minerals, foreign extraction, infrastructure revenue leaving Canada as soon as it's done. But I really want you to consider this, that Canada used to have Canadian producers, Canadian investors that took control of all of this, and the money would stay here. The money was still Canadian backed. It was Canadian owned to some degree. And of course, yes, you're definitely going to have global relations, global stakes in certain things. That's not like it's crazy and uncommon. But the pattern here is that it's been every single thing Carney has announced has been exactly that, where the foreign ownership of things, the foreign stakes in things are far greater than those in Canada. The relief in Canada, if you want to call it that, is incredibly temporary and small in comparison. And it makes no sense when you see Canadian companies who are doing these investments in the United States because the environment doesn't allow them to here. What is going on? And so the way that I kind of view this is that Canada is almost starting to lock itself into a system where foreign states will own our ports, minerals, energy, manufacturing supply chains, digital infrastructure, and also policy future as a result of that, because they'll have such high stakes in the country. And it's just really bizarre to me how we have made domestic development next to impossible. We have pushed investment away and then almost claimed as though Canada had no choice but to rely on this foreign capital, and we wave our flags around for it. But in reality, what's really happening is that we're allowing foreign governments to build, own, and profit from Canadian resources that we should be profiting from it to the greatest degree because they're in our country and they're ours. And the more that I see this pattern of how these deals are actually written, or how these promises are actually written out, it really does appear that the goal here is to transition Canada into a globalized asset, not a sovereign country. Because the thing that makes the most sense would be to just repeal the bad laws that are hurting us in the first place. And I know that people always talk about pipelines, but those bad laws are also what's causing a mine 15 to 20 years to be approved and start digging and get underway. Those same bad laws are what's hurting our housing sector, those permits and zoning and just all the dumb stuff, the stupid bureaucracy that doesn't need to be there, that doesn't exist in other nations that are thriving. Why do they exist here, if not solely for control?
But I want to highlight a few other issues before my time is up. First, the importance of high-integrity, standardized carbon markets that have the potential to shift capital flows to those most affected by climate change, including being integrated with JETPs, such as the JETP here, changing the incentives and the financial calculations to decarbonize. I'd suggest that we can catalyze enormous private sector demand for these credits by committing AI data center development to be carbon neutral. We need a price on carbon. I salute my neighbor, the European Union, in pricing carbon and putting in place a CBAM.
How interesting it is to hear Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, talk about CBAM, which is something that he essentially is the baby daddy of. Because Brookfield and carbon markets, well, they make billions selling carbon credits and investing into carbon markets. However, that only works if carbon is taxed, it's commodified, and companies are forced to buy credits to operate. So every single time that Mark Carney talks about carbon taxes, carbon pricing, carbon neutral AI, he's just strengthening the system that made him rich and continues to benefit his global network. This is a complete conflict of interest, by the way, but according to Ottawa, that is leadership. But it's really crazy to me because AI data centers, as an example, use an insane amount of energy. They actually can consume as much electricity as a small city. And so Carney's new idea for that is that, it has to be carbon neutral. We need a price on carbon. I salute my neighbor, the European Union, for CBAM, which is something that he fathered. Interesting. So he wants to apply carbon taxes to the most energy-intensive technology sector on the planet at the moment. But what exactly happens when you do that? That would actually only mean that Canada loses, because AI development is not going to come here. Why would they? A prime minister, historically, would be elected because their vision and model best serves the people whom elected them, right? But in Canada, that's not the case that we have at all. And it's really interesting how strong Carney and the Liberals are on climate change when, according to this from Abacus data, it shows that the top issues of Canadians are far from climate change at all, actually. It's quite low to the bottom of the list, yet Mark Carney is going up on stage talking about how much we need to have this global carbon credit system that he profits off of. Well, that's pretty weird, isn't it? Yeah, it is really weird. Only 13% of Canadians put climate change, climate-related issues in the top of their list of priorities. So who comes out on top here? Who does Mark Carney actually serve? It's definitely not Canada. People who benefit from carbon neutral AI markets, carbon neutral anything, would be the EU because CBAM grows stronger. China because they manufacture a lot of the net zero transition alternatives. They also would attract the data centers because they don't have this kind of regulation. Global financial institutions benefit. Brookfield style investors benefit. Central bankers and global climate regulators, which is what Mark Carney was prior to being prime minister, they would all gain more power. And who loses? Canada, everything loses. Canada's sovereignty, competitiveness, privacy, democracy, innovation, workers, everybody, everything Canada loses in this. This is a very notable pattern. A very notable pattern. And it's one to be really concerned of, especially when, just as this lady puts it, they are working overdrive to ensure that anybody who opposes this ideology is viewed in the most vicious way.
Who here has heard of the term PSYOP? Everybody look around the room. This is what the Conservative Party looks like. It's a tent full of people from all kinds of backgrounds, different religions, different cultures, different ages. I just met this wonderful young man who's in his 20s, and we all come from different backgrounds of education, of work experience, of life experience. This is what the Conservative Party represents. I am so, pardon my language, fed up with the CBC, with the CTV, with global TV, with the newspapers, with the bullshit that we see over and over and over again, day after day, spewing out these psyops, this brainwashing, this narrative, this control tactic. And I want to know how we, as a tent full of people from all these different backgrounds, and pardon me for swearing, but I'm at my limit here. I'm absolutely at my limit. I want to know how we can spread the truth, spread the facts, and not contain ourselves in these bubbles so we can start educating those idiots that voted this party back in.
I'm Jasmine Lane. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like, follow, and comment your thoughts down below. Share this video as well, and I will talk to you tomorrow.